hello everyone. This is Brandon Rush. Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Agent Investor. The goal of The Agent Investor is to have conversations with those in the real estate industry, in the commercial, the multifamily, and other asset classes, and to allow you guys to make informed decisions based on these conversations. Today we have Joette Trinh from Trinh Law. Joette is a good friend of mine. I've used her on multiple transactions over the course of my real estate career, I guess you could say. Thank you for joining us, Joette.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we'll jump right in. So Joette, tell us about yourself, how you involved in real estate, how you got involved, and anything else you'd like to share.
Well, I've been an attorney for 10 years, a real estate attorney for 10 years, but that is not how I got started. Actually, right out of undergrad, my mom had attended one of those one-day seminars. This is like 15, 17 years ago. There's no YouTube University back then. So you attend one of those one-day seminars where they sell you the real estate investor seminar for thousands of dollars. So she attended and she brought me with her and I was immediately hooked. I loved real estate, fell in love with it, but I didn't have the money to pay all of this, what it costs to go to these investor seminars. So I contacted the head of the company and I offered to work. And I said, just get me in the room. I just want to learn what it is that you have to teach. I'll get your coffee. I'll get your dry cleaning. Just put me in the room. And after about 6 months of pestering, they finally hired me. And I spent 5 years with them learning how to invest in everything from residential, commercial paper, meaning commercial paper notes, mobile home parks, things like that. And then after about 5 years, 2008, that whole, the world blew up economically and in real estate. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I better learn how to protect what I'm buying. So I decided to go to law school. And then during law school, during the first year, you're not allowed to have a job. So I started to invest and apply what it was that I learned during that 5 years. My boyfriend, now my husband, Mike, and I started buying individual mobile homes, and we started fixing, flipping them and selling them, seller financing them. And that's how I paid for law school. Ooh. And we just upgraded our portfolio. Now we invest, we hold, we have a large portfolio of homes. And then I am also a real estate attorney and I run my law firm. So I'm different than most attorneys because I'm not just an attorney, I'm also an investor.
Got it. Absolutely. Good story. Flipping mobile homes. What drew you to mobile homes? What was this? Was it just an opportunity that came about, or it was intentional?
It was intentional because, like I said, during the first year of law school, I wasn't allowed to work. So I was living off my savings. I was living off my student loans at the time. And then I thought, what can I invest in that's cheap enough where I can go buy it for cash because I didn't qualify for a loan, but will give me a good return on my money. And that was mobile homes. So I couldn't do it in New York or Massachusetts because they're too expensive here. But in upstate New York, a mobile home that costs 40 or 60 grand down here is 5 to 10 up there.
Wow.
So I had enough money where I could buy, a $5,000 mobile home. I would scrub and fix, and Mike would demo and paint and roll out the tar on the roof. Yep. I'd go to law school during the week, and then we'd drive up and we would demo and paint and clean these mobile homes and then resell them.
Got it. No, good stuff.
That's what brought me to mobile homes, is because it's what I could afford at the moment.
Maybe a weird question. Are you still investing in mobile homes in any way today, or is that a done deal and you moved on to different things?
We moved on to residential and multifamily.
Got it. All right. No, cool. And also tell us, before I forget to touch on it, tell us a little bit about your law firm, kind of where you guys located, maybe anything you specialize in, or just a general overview of your law firm.
So Trinh Law is my law firm. We are located in West Hartford, but I am licensed in both Connecticut and Massachusetts. I do mainly residential and commercial real estate closings, but I also do LLC formations, small business operating agreements, and simple wills. A lot of my clients are investors. I will do, of course, your first-time home buyer, your first-time investor, but I also do a lot of more complicated deals, like creative financing, seller financing, rent-to-own, novations, all of that. I do all of that as well.
Absolutely. No, good. That's definitely something that here in our market is known for, is some of the creative stuff and some of our creative investors. So wanted to get that out there. No, perfect. All right, so let's dive into some questions here. So a lot of the conversation, or most conversations, is going to be focused around multifamily commercial assets. In terms of multifamily versus multifamily residential versus multifamily commercial, in terms of when working with you in transactions, do you see a lot of differences between the 2 to 4 unit transactions versus the 5+ and on unit transactions?
The main differences are, of course, the number of tenants, the number of leases that I would have to review, making sure that the leases transfer over, security deposits and rents. But the main difference is obviously the environmental aspect. When you get into the bigger commercial units, or you've got mixed use, you've got the environmental aspect, phase 1, phase 2 coming into play. So that is the main difference, I would say. And then, of course, the more tenants you have, the more time it takes for me as the attorney to review the leases and go through that.
Got it. So your team is reviewing all the leases. So if you help somebody close on a 20-unit building, your team have to go through all 20 of the leases that they're provided? And
well, if the lease is the same, if it's a boilerplate, and the only thing that's changing is the person's name, but we know that the same lease was used over and over, barring any type of special circumstances, once you review the first few, it's a cursory overview. I'm not reading, every single line, because it's all the same. It's the same lease being used over and over.
Got it. Have you ever, I'm sure you have, but I've seen a few deals I've closed on where the leases, say it's a 5-unit, but they're all different. They're written, they're just a mess, and it's like written on the side. Did you make use of the paper?
Yeah.
You run into those often, or what do you do?
I have, and then in that case, I review every word.
Got it. Those are pretty painful, because even as an agent, I'm trying to help the buyer or whoever, and it's just, I hate to play attorney, and it's like, it just gets so confusing. I'm like, this is so horrible to hand off to an attorney, but I guess that's why they pay you guys the big bucks, and you take over and figure it all out. But no, cool. So, all right. So really quick, you touched on phase 1, phase 2. Like, just general, some may or may not know, what is a phase 1 and a phase 2?
So a phase 1 environmental inspection is more of a preliminary inspection. Most of the time you're going to hire like an environmental engineer or something to run the type of report. They're going to check the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection websites, to see if there's been any type of hazardous substances that have been released. And then phase 2 is above and beyond that. It's more in depth, it's more time consuming, it's more expensive. So when we get into the types of commercial properties that are mixed use, maybe they have retail on the bottom and residential on top or something like that, even 1 or 2 of those, it's definitely important to make sure that you are getting the environmentals checked, that there's been no type of hazardous chemical release on those units. And you don't really see that a ton in the smaller 2 to 4 multifamilies, unless there is, like I said, a mixed use. Like, for instance, I had a dry cleaners most recently, and that was only a 2-unit. So you really need to be aware of what the use is of the property. Got it.
And sometimes could that be not necessarily the property itself, but maybe a nearby property that, like if there's a nearby gas station or something, some industrial, is it usually more of a prompt to get a phase 1 done?
Well, you definitely want to know if there's been any leakage from the neighboring property. For instance, like in your example, if a gas station is leaking, their substances, the gasoline chemicals, could be infiltrating the soil on your land. So that's definitely something that you should be aware of, you should be mindful of.
Got it. All right, now cool. Let's jump out of the phase 1. And next question. So someone looking to close, or an investor looking to buy multifamily with you and your team, what does that process look like? And what can they do to be more prepared for the process?
The process is pretty simple. Once you have the property under contract, you're going to send it to me. I'm going to take a look at the contract. I'm going to have a intake conversation with the client, asking them about the property. And I'll ask if you've received any leases. Do you know if the units are occupied or vacant? Security deposits, rents, all of that. So those are all things that I want to know about when you bring a contract to me. And then my office opens it, you'll sign a representation agreement, and we'll go from there.
Got it. So from what I'm hearing, even though you guys would prompt them to gather this information, it would still be very helpful to have in advance things like leases, security deposits, have that all kind of lined up and ready for you guys. So it's similar to when you're applying for a mortgage or you're getting pre-approved. Generally, it's a lot easier for the lender to just have those documents, you to have them on tap versus like scrambling to get them last second and running you guys.
It's definitely helpful. And if the investor is not working with an agent for any reason, please send the contract to me to review it before you sign it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I didn't even think of that. Okay, cool. All right, and then kind of the flip side of that, when someone wants to work you in the sell side, again, how do they approach that? What does that conversation look like and that process look like?
It's the exact same process. Whether you're buying or selling residential, buying or selling commercial, you're always going to send me the contract and any related documentation to it. We're going to have an intake conversation where I introduce myself. I explain the process. Okay, you're going to sign the representation agreement. We're going to review the documents. This is how things progress. And so I kind of lay the land out for the investor of how the transaction is going to proceed. But like I said, it's always important that if there's not a realtor involved in the transaction, not using realtor approved contracts, that the investor contact me before they sign anything, because I want to make sure that any of the terms that are in the contract, since it's not a realtor contract, there might be things in there that are not customary. There might be things in there that are not in the client's favor. So I definitely want to review that before they sign off on it.
Got it. All right. And speaking of realtors, so obviously I'm an agent. I'm curious, your recommendations on investors using realtors or not using realtors when working with you guys, or is it really based on the investor and their experience?
It's based on the investor and what I think their goals are. I have a lot of investors who use agents to buy multifamily. I also have investors who come to me who have gone direct to seller and have negotiated like a seller financing deal. So in that scenario, I'm certainly available. And then I also work with wholesalers too. So oftentimes in that scenario, realtors aren't involved. But I think using a realtor is a great way to have access to the information, have access to the contracts. And if you're a buyer, you know, the seller is paying for the realtor. So there's no reason not to use one.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, good. Just wanted to clarify that. Cool. All right, let's keep it moving. Actually, a jump question. Some of the common legal mistakes you see investors make on transactions, whether on the buy or sell side, some common things you see.
There's so many. Not having the right name of the seller. That's one. So not doing your due diligence and either not naming the correct seller or naming some of the sellers, but not all of the sellers, or naming the individual seller and not the LLC that the seller owns the property in. Not knowing that there's probate on a property. So maybe the buyer has talked to the seller and the seller says, oh yeah, I'm the only one that owns the property. But what they've neglected to say is that their spouse also owned the property with them, but the spouse has passed away. So then the probate becomes an issue. It shows up on title. And then I call and I go, did you know that there's probate that has to be done? Because then that delays the process most often.
Got it. Didn't even think of that. And I'm sure there's, like you said, there's a number of things, multiple people who own the property, or the person doesn't even own the property. Oh man. Okay, no, good. And the other question I have is, any interesting stories, good or bad, something that's uncommon that you've seen maybe recently, whenever throughout your attorney career in regards to real estate?
Probably the most recent one was I had a client. He came to me with a 2-unit commercial building, and he used the Greater Hartford area of realtors commercial contract, so the GAR contract, which is fine. It's a valid, totally great contract to use in a deal. So he gets it signed, he brings it to me, and he was going to do a double close. So he's going to buy the property, and then he's going to turn around and he's going to sell it for more money. He did not tell me the use of the property when he brought the contract to me. And oddly enough, I happened to be friends with him on Facebook. So I'm scrolling through Facebook and I saw that he had posted a video of, look at this new property I'm buying. And it was a dry cleaners. And I'm like zoned in. I'm looking at this and I'm going, wait, he's buying a dry cleaners? Like, he didn't tell me that. He just told me it was a 2-unit commercial building and it was vacant. It was an old dry cleaners that wasn't being used. And when you buy a property that is a dry cleaners, a gas station, any type of like automotive repair shop that has like a oil change available there, it's automatically subject to a Connecticut Transfer Act. It's a huge part of the commercial real estate world. And it's very expensive to comply with that act. And so I called my client right away and I said, you didn't tell me this is a dry cleaners. I said, are you going to do a phase one? And he said, no, I'm buying it as is. I waived my inspections. And I'm like, you waived your inspections on a commercial property and you're not doing an environmental. Like, that is not what I would suggest.
Wow.
So he was under contract with the seller to buy it. He was under contract with the purchaser to sell it once he purchased it. And so I said, I really don't think that this is a good idea for you. We need to change this transaction around. We need to change some aspects. We can still make it so that you make some money off this deal, but we need to change some terms so that you're not liable for the obligation to comply with the Connecticut Transfer Act. So the end buyer decided that they wanted to do a phase one. The person who was buying it from my client wanted to do a phase one. So that client, who was not my client, represented by a different attorney, sent it off to their environmental engineer. And that environmental engineer came back and said, the cleanup on this property is $120,000. Now, my client was going to buy it and sell it and make 40. Okay. But had he bought it as is, then found out that he had to do 120, the whole deal would have cost him 80 grand out of pocket. And he would have made nothing and he would have lost 80 grand. Oof. So I said to my client, you are not buying this property. Like, we're done here. So I said to my client, I go, well, you didn't make 40 grand, but I saved you 80, you know? So that's how important it is to have an attorney that knows what they're doing, involved in the transaction, reviewing the contract, just having a handle on the whole deal, because my client would have lost his shirt on that deal had I not stepped in.
Dang. Okay. Got it. So that just teaches me personally. Never have both parties sign the contract. If you're going to have the seller sign, maybe have them sign, but pause, send it to you, especially if it's something.
You could put an attorney review period in there. You can have everybody sign off and then just say subject to a 3-day or 5-day attorney review period. And then you send it to me. And now you're under a contract. And once I review it, you're good to go. But if I call a halt to it for any reason, you can still get out of the contract and get your deposit back because you had that attorney review period in the contract.
I completely forgot that I do that as one of my stitches in every contract. Okay. That's good to know. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Now see what those actually come in and actually work. Because I'm always curious to see, like, one of these get called or I hear someone doing this. So I guess it's a big case where it was super important to have that contingency. So
yeah.
All right, now I know. All right, cool. I think we are through all the real estate related questions, kind of taking a step out of the real estate questions, kind of going a little bit personal. So when you're not doing your attorney thing and investing and so on, what is some of your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing?
So my husband and I, we have 3 kids, ages 8, 5, and 3. So they keep us busy. I love to eat. I like to exercise. I could pass on the exercising. I love to eat and I love to travel. So I've been to 16 or 17 different countries.
Nice.
And of those 17 countries, I've been to those more than once. I love to travel, love to eat, love to experience new things. Yeah.
What was the last country you guys been to?
We went to the Dominican last week. And then, before that, it was COVID. But we were going to Thailand, Vietnam, Greece, all over.
Yeah, I've been to Thailand. That's one of my favorite places I've been. It's a little wild, but that's why it was so much fun.
It's wild, that's for sure. Yeah, it's different.
Wild and humid, but it was all good. All right, cool. And, how can people find you, get a hold of you, contact you? What's the best way?
You can go to my website, which is www.trin.law. My email is on there. My office phone number is on there. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. So not hard to find me, just Trinh Law in West Hartford, Connecticut.
Absolutely. And before we break out, any final words for the audience that you want to leave?
I would just say it's super important to have an attorney on your team looking over your documents, looking over your shoulder, and just making sure that, they're guiding you through the deal, because it's so important. Like in that story that I told you, had my client not gotten me involved, he would have lost over $80,000 on that. So just making sure that you have a great, competent attorney about part of your transaction on every transaction.
Absolutely. Oh, cool. All right. Well, Joette, first off, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciated everything you've done here, you've done for me in the past and in the future. To our audience, thank you all once again for joining us for another episode of The Agent Investor. I am Brandon Rush, your host. I can be found at BrandonRushAgent.com. All my social medias, stuff, you can find it there and contact info. But until next time, thank you once again, Joette. Thank you all, and I'll see you later.